We're starting it now.
Oh, we're going to start now? Okay.
Yes.
So let me just get my notes again. And I will look under item number 1.1 for the land acknowledgement to Councillor DeLeo. Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, everyone. The town of Wasaga Beach acknowledges it is located upon the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people of the Three Fires Confederacy. We also acknowledge that the people of the Wyandot Nation also inhabited these lands. We acknowledge that these nations were sovereign nations existing before the arrival of settlers. We respect the spiritual interconnection among these nations to the land and to the water. We also acknowledge that waterways near us have a long history predating European arrival. Since time immemorial, waterways were the lifeblood of the indigenous people by trade and hunting routes. We are dedicated to inclusivity of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people in our future stewardship of the land and the longest freshwater beach in the world. In the spirit of reconciliation, we welcome the opportunity of learning to be sustainable caretakers of the land and waterways for all future generations. Thank you.
Miigwech, and thank you, Councillor. Item number 2 on the agenda is proclamations, and we have no proclamations today. Under item number 3, disclosure of pecuniary interests. I have none before me at this time. If at some point throughout the meeting you feel you have a pecuniary interest, please let us know at that time. Item number 4 is adoption of the agenda, and I'm going to look to our clerk on this one. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. With regards to the agenda, for item 17.3.3, which is the property and acquisition closed session matter, we're going to add exemption 239.2F, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege for that closed session. We're also going to remove the Committee of Adjustment minutes from the consent list for May 30th. We were made aware that the system didn't attach those set of minutes, so those will come before Council July 17th. Excellent. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And so the recommended motion then is that the contents of the agenda of June 25th, 2025 be approved as amended. Questions or comments? Seeing none, a mover and a seconder for this, please. Deputy Mayor Snell and Councillor White. All in favor? Carries unanimously. Item number 5 is the approval of the minutes and the regular meeting of Council on June 12th, that the minutes of the Council meeting held June 12th, 2025 be adopted as circulated. Any questions or comments on those minutes? Seeing none, a mover and a seconder, Councillor Belanger and Councillor Eagle. All in favor? That carries. Item number 6 is public meetings. We have no public meetings today. And item number 7 is presentations. We have Baker Tilly SGB LLP here today with the 2024 audited financial statements presentation. And Mr. Jay Anstey is here to present those. Good morning, Jay. Good to see you and welcome.
Good morning, Your Worship and members of Council. Great to be here, as always, to do our annual presentation of the audited financial statements and the financial statement results for the 2024 fiscal year. Included in the Council agenda package today, there are 5 attachments with today's report, in addition to this slideshow. Included are the draft audited financial statements, the draft investment review, the draft trust fund audit, as well as 2 reporting letters, the audit reporting letter and the management letter. With regards to the 2 audits and review that we do, we again have provided a clean, unqualified audit opinion, and this means that the financial statements and policies are free from material misstatement in all cases. And materiality is, of course, a subjective audit matter, but we do like to report that the town had no unadjusted misstatements, so there are adjustments through the audit, but there was nothing that was left unadjusted, so all a very clean audit from that perspective. And then the reporting letters, the audit reporting letter and management letter, again, from a controls and processes and procedures standpoint, we had no significant findings to report, no control recommendations to recommend to management or council that need to be improved. So overall, a good, clean audit with really no findings to report to council from a audit and controls standpoint. Of course, with any audit, there are always adjustments throughout the process. Many of these are a result of requirements for the public sector accounting standards for external financial reporting. So often management will bring forward reporting internally, but the adjustments that we do find are typically as a result of these requirements for external reporting or simply a matter of timing, which I will explain with several adjustments throughout the course of the audit that we did find during the year. Looking at the consolidated statement of operations, so these are the financial results for the activity during the year. I will start by referring to Treasurer Lee's report that she brought forward on March 30th, 2025, giving the financial results internally for the town. This report we do use for the audit, one, because Council does approve it for some preliminary reserve transfers based on activity during the year, but we also do use it as a starting point, and we can report back that that isn't a very accurate report that Treasurer Lee brought forward, and there was nothing that we found that was inaccurate throughout that report. The reason I bring this up is, again, there are several changes throughout the course of the audit, and these numbers may look different than what you saw there or what she is going to present after my presentation today as well. And a good example of one of the changes that does occur through the course of the audit is the amortization expense that is booked. And again, this is a accounting only entry, and it's a $10 million difference that you'll see on the operating expenses line between the $48.1 million budget and the $58.5 million actual result. And this is an accounting adjustment that is done for external reporting purposes and not a budget to actual issue. So it's $10 million of the amortization of the depreciation of the town's assets over the years that is expected. So it's a good example of one of the adjustments made. Other adjustments that are made are things such as the government investments in government business enterprise changes, which again is a matter of timing, that those financial results aren't available at the time of the March 30th report that are now included in these financial statements. So those were another $2.1 million adjustment found throughout the course of the audit, but this is a regular expected occurring adjustment. There was one other change that was a late adjustment, and it was a $1 million change to both accounts payable and operating expenses that Treasurer Lee will discuss in her staff report, but that is not reflected in these numbers. So the net revenues of $666,000 has actually decreased by approximately $1 million for the year. And again, the $20.4 million is decreased by the same amount. So the annual surplus is now $19.4 million on the adjusted drafts that we would like Council to approve today. Note 22 is an important note to the financial statements, and it brings that $20.4 million that I just referenced, which again is now $19.4 million on the revised drafts, and how that will reconcile to the $534,000 that Treasurer Lee has on her report that she is bringing forward today for the ultimate reserve transfer. And again, with that change, that is now going to be a $490,000 transfer from reserves to fund a small deficit. Again, this is a technical schedule, but I want to reassure Council that these are all required adjustments for external reporting purposes, and it is regular to see, and this is, to me, a nice reconciliation of how those do tie in together. And again, it's mainly related to capital assets and geosands and the government business enterprises. Turning to the consolidated statement of financial position, I'm going to provide some highlights based on the standard indicators that are released by the province and indicate the town's overall financial health as of the end of 2024. As an overall, before I begin, you will notice there are several decreases in areas that we typically in the past in the town of Wasaga Beach have seen increases. But these are some expected decreases based on what things are supposed to be used for. Investments have decreased and obligatory reserves funds have decreased, but they have done so in order to increase and reinvest in the town's tangible capital asset and in the growth and reinvestment in the town. So overall, I will say that the indicators, they remain very consistent, and they do continue to show the town is in good financial health and generally in low risk areas in almost all categories. The first indicator in front of us here, we have financial assets, and this is comparing financial assets to current liabilities. You will see it is fairly consistent that the town can cover 0.9 about 10% of its overall liabilities with the cash balance available. That is a low-risk indicator, so again, it's in a low-risk category. You will notice here the town is well below the provincial average. That's just by definition, because this is strictly looking at cash compared to current liabilities. The town does considerable cash management and moves cash into investments to provide returns on investments. So if you factor in the investments that are available, the town could actually cover its liabilities 3.5 times over, so much closer to the provincial average there. Looking at net financial assets, and this is comparing total financial assets, so the cash and investments I just referred to, as well as accounts receivable, taxes receivable that are to be collected from ratepayers and users, those types of assets compared to total liabilities. Overall, the town remains in a positive net financial asset position of 31 million. Again, we'll see a decrease in net financial assets, which the town typically hasn't been used to seeing, but this still remains a very healthy balance, a low-risk area that it can cover all of its financial liabilities with these assets, and still well above the provincial average. You will see a slight decrease in 2024 from 2023 in this indicator, but one thing was there was a additional accounts payable that was adjusted throughout the course of the audit, and again, one of these audit findings that was a required adjustment, and that was for 2.4 million for the town's capital contribution to the Wasaga Beach Public School. So an agreement was in place, so there was an increase in accounts payable that we had accrued, but then at the same time there was an increase in the prepaid expenses for the future use that the town has for the shared facilities. So again, an accounting required entry, but that had no impact on the overall operating surplus. Looking at investment in government business enterprises, this is one of two this year. This is the standard geosands investment that I believe you just had a presentation on from the geosands board and management, but this is the town's reflection of that investment. So included is the note receivable, so a loan from the town to Geosands in the amount of $3.5 million that remains consistent, and the note does earn interest, and this year $165,000 of interest income was earned on that note. And then also the investment in the government business enterprise. So the retained earnings of Geosands that the company decides to retain and keep for its own purposes is reflected on the town's financial statements. That's $20.4 million that the town has remaining with Geosands. This increased by $1.4 million year over year based on its increase in retained earnings after paying out a dividend of $600,000 to the town. New this year, though, is the second investment in government business enterprise, and that's the Wasaga Beach Sports and Entertainment Inc. Municipal Services Corporation that the town wholly owns the shares of and was incorporated in October of 2024. So the financial results here show that, again, there's a loan from the town to this government business enterprise of $500,000, which no interest has been earned to date. Again, that was done in late fall 2024. And then also the overall investment in government business enterprise is actually a deficit of $62,850 at the end of 2024 from the small portion of operations that did occur at the end of 2024. Looking at tangible capital assets, so another significant year of investment for the town during the year. There was a $17 million net increase in tangible capital assets. This includes $30 million of additions, $14 million of which was in infrastructure, road and sewer works completed on River Road West, Mosley Street, Middleton Drive, Ramblewood, Beach Drive, Constance and Thomas, to name a few. $2.8 million spent on the water pollution control plant, snowplow additions, as well as the $30 million I know includes $5 million of contributed tangible capital assets, and these are assumed by the municipality as the developers turn them over for control by the town. That was Bay Cliff Phase 3, Ramblewood Phase 1, and Wally Drive as well. So the $30 million increase is offset by that $10 million amortization expense that I referenced earlier in the statement of operations. $1 million of disposals related to assets that had been replaced through the year, such as the snowplows, as well as a $2.1 million write-down that was done in 2024. And so that is the write-down of the original cost of the portion of the buildings that were removed from active use in 2024, and since in 2025 have been demolished. The asset consumption ratio here we see is remaining steady at 28%. So how much of the overall town's useful life has been used up? That's 28% is a very low number. Seeing that stay consistent is excellent. It shows there's that reinvestment in the town that I was referring to in both existing and new infrastructure as the town grows and reinvests in itself. So it's good to see that number stay consistent like that, and again below the provincial average and in a low risk area. On the liability side of the statement of financial position, we see obligatory reserve funds, and again, an area that historically we have seen increase throughout the town, but this year a significant use of obligatory reserve funds, and that was to fund those capital projects that I just referred to. So the River Road West, Mosley Street, Beach Drive, all of those types of capital projects. There was $9.3 million overall decrease. While there was a $2.3 million increase from government grants, as well as $1.5 million of development charges collected through the year. Looking at loans, there's two types of loans. A temporary loan that was the construction loan for the Twin Pad Arena and Library, as well as long-term liabilities, of which there are 5 loans outstanding, 2 for the beachfront and 1 for the streetlight retrofit and 1 for a fire pumper truck. Again, nothing new this year. These are all existing long-term loans. And 1 loan was renewed subsequent to year end, which is reflected into the notes to the financial statements, or is in the process of being renewed. When we're looking at the provincial indicator here, we see there's 3.1% of the town's debt repayment. 3% of the town's own source revenue is used towards debt repayment, so it remains in a low risk and below provincial average. But this does not yet include that the temporary loan is going to be eventually transferred into a long-term loan, which will increase this indicator in future years and move it more towards the low end of the low risk and possibly into the medium risk category. And finally, looking at accumulated surplus, it's always an important note to the financial statement that reflects that $385 million of accumulated surplus is not cash in the bank. It's mainly related to those tangible capital assets that the town owns to operate and provide services. That's the roads and infrastructure of the town, the equipment and fleet. The reserves and reserve funds of $39.5 million overall they had increased by $534,000, but again, with that change that we would like to reflect in the draft financial statements, they will now show a decrease of $490,000. So that is an important change to note, but still right around that break-even point. We did see $12.8 million in increase in reserves throughout the year, but this was offset by $13.3 million of use of reserves through the year. Again, much of that towards those capital projects that I was referring to earlier. But when we look at the amount of reserves compared to operating expenditures, the town could cover reserves or operating expenditures, 78% of operating expenditures, which remains in a low risk area and right around the provincial average. So those are the highlights I wanted to go over, but at this point I will turn it over back to you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Jay, for that presentation. I'll look to members of council for questions or comments, and unless before we do, CFO, anything to add? I know your presentation's coming up, but
I'll wait.
You'll wait? All right. Members of council, questions or comments? Councillor Belanger?
Yes, through the mayor. First of all, thank you very much, and
we'll get two opportunities to congratulate our CFO and her team. That I guess a number of clean audits that you've generated over the years, so thank you. I just have one question, and it says assets held for resale, and I don't know how those are categorized, but recently we purchased a property at Main and River Road that was well over $141,000, and it is for resale, but it maybe it's not categorized in this area.
Yeah, through your worship, yes, so it is a very strict definition for assets held for resale. Included in that category, there's a note to the financial statements that shows there are 3 properties included in that. The specific property that you're referring to, I believe, was purchased in 2025, so that's why it's not reflected in there. It is in a note to the financial statements that does describe that note, because there was a significant asset purchase with some long-term expected debt to be taken on with it. So there is some disclosure, but not required to be recorded in the financial statements for 2024.
So, just to follow, we also had declared a number of properties surplus for resale. That would have been in 2024, I believe. And they would have accumulated a much larger total than 141. But again, it may be captured some other way. Do you
want to take it?
Madam CFO?
Thank you, Your Worship. The definition is in regards to properties that are seen for sale at this time. So there are 3 properties that are listed at this time. So it's only those 3 properties that would be included. And again, they're included at our historical cost, which those properties were purchased many years ago when they have a very low historical cost to be captured in that line. So it's a little bit difficult sometimes to understand, but basically it's just capturing properties that are shown on the market for sale at this time.
That answered my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Other questions or comments from members of council? All right, seeing none, I do have just a couple of comments and or questions. Again, to Jocelyn and your team, excellent work as always. It's always good to sit here and know that a clean audit is occurred. It's also important to note that based on this presentation, that the municipality remains in very healthy financial condition, and again, I attribute that not only to the hard work of our staff, but to the tight fist of our CFO. And so we appreciate that. Although there are days, we do appreciate it, Jocelyn. I know you take a lot of ribbing for it, but I want you to know we truly do appreciate it. And of course, our citizens really appreciate it here in town. Just, Jay, can you give us an idea, an indicator for the public, how we fare out compared to most other municipalities that would be comparable?
In which way? Financial, audit policies?
From a financial standpoint.
Again, I think speaking to the low-risk indicators, I want to say, I don't want to say this in a negative way, but we saw decreases this year, and this town has had a history of continuously increasing reserves, increasing cash and investments. So to see things go down seems like a negative thing, but to me it's a positive indicator that you're reinvesting those assets in the way they're supposed to be within the policies that are supposed to be in the legislation into the town and in the infrastructure. So again, I think it's all good financial indicators that I went over today. So I can say that as compared to others, it's difficult to put a definition or a comment on that.
Appreciate that, and I asked the question because I think, and what you've said is very important, that although that, some of our other balances have gone down, the reinvestment in the assets have gone up significantly. So it's not like that money is gone, it's reinvested, just like you would if you replaced your driveway at home for a crumbly old driveway to a new one, right? And in many cases, the asset actually gains more value than you actually spend. So I asked that question. And I just wanted to touch on the 2.4 million, to be clear for the public. This is the 2.4 million that was committed for the elementary school that is built in Sunnydale Trails for the gymnasium, correct?
That is correct.
All right, thank you very much. If there's no other questions or comments from council, Jay, thank you very much for your presentation. We do have the recommended motion that the presentation by Baker Tilly SGB LLP pertaining to 2024 audited financial statements be received for information. Could I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Councillor Belanger, Councillor Timms. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much, Jay. And we'll now move on to our 7.1.1, which is the financial year-end report for 2024. And this will be our CFO, Jocelyn Lee, doing this report. Jocelyn, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good morning, members of council. I would like to first start by thanking Mr. Anstey and his team for their excellent support and guidance throughout the year. It really is helpful for us with all the activities that we have going on, and we value the information that we receive from them. With regards to the late entry that's been recorded, the subsequent event is in relation to a tentative settlement that has been reached for a legal dispute. Formal agreement is still pending, and that'll come forward later. With regards to the staff report that follows this presentation, there's a recommendation in the staff report to approve the financial statements as presented today by the auditors. So that's the main purpose of the report, plus it provided you with a little bit of an updated summary from what was presented in the March staff report. And I believe between those reports and our presentation today that we have provided a good overview of the positive results that have occurred for 2024. So thank you very much, Your Worship. I'll return it back to you.
Thank you very much, Jocelyn. And I think it's important to note that late addition, as you indicated, is due to a matter that at this time we're simply not at liberty to speak at because we're in the final stages of settlement there, but we anticipate in near future that matter being finalized, and staff will then bring a report back to council. I look forward to that, to be able to speak to that so that the general public is clear and understands what that's all about. Any other questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Belanger?
Again, I've been into town hall many times when our CFO, Jocelyn Lee, has continuously put in an extra effort, and I think we should acknowledge that time, and our leadership team. The results that are being generated this term are not 9-to-5ers. These are individuals that give the extra effort day in and day out, and I can speak for myself, and I think all of council. It's greatly appreciated, and it's certainly demonstrated in the results. So thank you, Jocelyn and leadership team.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions or comments? All right, we do have a recommended motion that the report titled Financial Year-End Report 2024 to the council meeting of June 25th, 2025 be received, and that council approve the 2024 audited financial statements as presented by Baker Tilly SGB LLP. Mover and a seconder for this, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Snell, seconded by Councillor White. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Thanks very much. Have a good afternoon. And we're now moving on to item number 7. It's still morning. Well, have a good morning and afternoon. And a good evening as well. 7.2, we have Miss Carrie Warner, South Georgian Bay and Springwater Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, here to give us an update. Carrie, is she here? She's online. There she is. All right. Good morning, Carrie. Welcome, and the floor is yours.
Good morning, Your Worship, and thank you very much to Council for the invitation. Actually, I think Chief Williams is going to say a few words, if that's possible.
He speaks way too often. We're not going to let him speak this morning. Absolutely, Chief.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good morning, members of council. I would like to welcome online with us Carrie Warner. She is from Avail Consulting. Carrie was originally hired by the County of Simcoe to prepare the 2021 to 2025 Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan for South Georgian Bay and Springwater. And over the last year, she's continued to work under the county and along with the townships of Clearview, Collingwood, Springwater, and Wasaga Beach to update the original plan. And she will be presenting this updated plan, which covers 2025 to 2029 here for you today. The plan is a legislative requirement under the Community Safety and Policing Act for all municipalities in Ontario, and once adopted, the plan will be displayed on the municipal website. So with that, Your Worship, we'll turn it over to Carrie.
All right, Carrie, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I think we're just going to load up that presentation. Thank you, Nicole. So I'm going to get started just while that presentation is loading. So for the next few minutes, as the Chief said, I've had the great pleasure of working across your community with providers to refresh your community safety and well-being plan. And so we're going to take a look at a little bit about why we're doing this planning, the importance and the rationale behind the planning, how the plan was informed, the areas of risk that are identified in the plan, the strategies that match those areas of risk, and then how the plan will be actioned, monitored, and reported on. And this is incredibly important because we have a ton of lessons learned since the last go-round of creating the original plans in 2021 right across the province. This is niche consulting work that I do. There are a few of us that have tracked all the plans across Ontario, and there's certainly some common findings. And it's equally important to know what doesn't work, to know what does work. And so we have certainly crafted this iteration of the plan reflecting that. And then we'll look at some proposed next steps. So we'll move to the next slide, please. And the next one. See how fast we're moving through this? All right. So we know that, we're doing this planning for a couple of reasons. First, we know that we have a legislative requirement to do this, and that every municipality in Ontario is required to develop, adopt, and implement a community safety and wellbeing plan. Now, municipalities could do this independently on their own. We saw the city of Barrie do this, some of the larger cities do this, but often we see municipalities joining together with common partners and other municipalities to develop joint plans, and that is the case for this plan today. So beyond the legislative requirement to do these plans, to create these plans, we look at what's in these plans and we can see that these are very, very complex social conditions that we're dealing with. We're talking about mental health and addictions, homelessness, access to service. You could create a single plan on any one of those topics. So when we're looking at this planning, the government, the ministry provides a framework, which was what you see on the right-hand side of your screen, the 4 domains that we're asked to consider when we're doing this planning. So looking at areas of risk and looking at strategies across those 4 areas of domain. And so we know that with these complex social conditions, they interface across various sectors, and that makes these plans, quite complex. So while it might just be, a 30-odd page plan, when you kind of dig deep into the strategies, you realize that there's quite an undertaking to complete. And so a lot of thought and partner and community participation, provider participation really, really has to be in the works with these. So if we look on the left-hand side of the screen, we see that the municipal role, as I mentioned, was to prepare and adopt the plan, but we know that when you read these plans, so much of this relies on those external community partners to help deliver on. We also recognize that every 4 years, as per the legislation, these plans need to be reviewed and revised, and that's why I'm here today. We've hit that 4-year timestamp of 2025. And now these plans are kind of a little wonky because the legislation came out that their first iteration was due in July of 2021, so they kind of run half year through half year. So starting in July, kind of ending 4 years later in July. And so that brings us to today. And then we talked about the monitoring, evaluating, and reporting on these plans, because I think that's where in the first go-round, right across the province, we saw that there was some struggle. And you may have heard this at conferences or, just anecdotally through people talking about these plans. And so we've certainly crafted the plan, this iteration, with those lessons learned in mind. Next slide, please. So how this plan was informed, you can kind of look at it like 3 phases. There was the data and documentation review, there was the consultation engagement, and then there was a strategy setting component to it. So the documentation that was reviewed could be anything like other municipal plans, other tables like collaborative tables like mental health and addiction, housing, poverty reduction tables, looking at what their work plans and their mandates are. And then the data review, we did collect original data when we did the plans 4 years ago, and so we refreshed that data, looking, apples to apples, what's changed, but then also being open to potentially new data. And so we're going to talk a little bit about data in a future slide, but that was done in order for to complete the refresh of your plan. So just if you're wondering kind of what some of that data might be, public health data, police data, 211 data, StatsCan data, school climate survey data. And then moving on from that, we had our consultation and engagement. So consulting with kind of targeted or key groups, certainly related to these areas of risk, and then maybe one-on-one providers from like equity deserving organizations, just to get a really focused conversation to really understand the depth and need. Then we did online surveys, residents and providers. So 2 different surveys, 2 different sets of questions, kind of all trying to capture perspective on these areas of risk and the need. And then we had an interactive local provider session. So that's where we invited a number of local providers to participate in a 3-hour interactive strategy building session. And we had, I think, good participation and representation at that group. And then also an in-person county-wide provider strategy setting session, because we have to appreciate that while we have local providers, we also have providers that serve across all of Simcoe County. And so we want to kind of capture those kind of how this community ties into the broader strategies and mandates and some of the other work that's happening. And we'll move on to the next slide. So this landed us with 3 areas of risk. So these were actually consistent with the areas of risk from the previous plan. And while you might think, well, they're just missing this area of risk or that area of risk, we kind of factored for that in the plan, and you have to, think about how much you can actually accomplish in the 4 years and which strategies are viable. And so, looking at the data, looking at the consultation, the engagement, the feedback, recognizing what's changed since the first iteration of the plan, and recognizing that some of these areas of risk have even are more exacerbated. The providers felt very comfortable that this was kind of the course to pursue and to identify in this iteration of the plan. Next slide, please. So we're going to take a moment on this slide, and I'm going to have you look to the right of the slide first, and you can see there that the plan is kind of divided. It identifies both countywide strategies and a local strategy. So the countywide strategy simply means that those 3 strategies will appear in each of the refreshed community safety and well-being plans that are being, presented actually this month across Simcoe County. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen cookie cutter in every community. It just means that there are a common strategy that will appear in each of the plans, but how they're delivered will differ based on local providers and partners, local community need, local community assets, recognizing that each community is unique and different, so how it plays out will be a little different. And that's good, that's what we want. And then we have the what we call kind of like a hyper-local or place-based strategy, and that is focused on access to services and supports. So if we look to the left, just kind of breaking them down, I'm not going to read through that because you've had the ability to do that. But the first one is really focusing on, pathways to prevention and reduction strategies around homelessness. So using some key groups or tables to really help refine that. We know that we have an evolving coordinated access system for homelessness, which is fantastic, but we know that there's some work to do. And so that's really what that strategy is focusing on. The next one is a mental health and addiction strategy, and it's focusing on transitional age youth, so that's youth age 12 to 25. And that strategy is really about uniting the providers that serve that 12 to 25 population to better identify and reduce gaps in services. We know that, when someone turns 18, often they move from child services to adult services, and there is the potential for there to be not quite a smooth transition or gaps and youth falling through the cracks. So that's actually a very exciting strategy, and some very sophisticated partners coming together on that. The next one is a data strategy, and so learning what we did from the first go round, recognizing the importance of data and how while data is, not a risk, it's an opportunity or a priority because of the work that these plans require, like how the work rolls out, the intersectoral and interconnectedness of these needs, and how that data can help shape and tell that story. So that data approach is really facilitating the collection, analysis, and sharing of aggregate data with those who are involved in community safety well-being planning, reporting, and monitoring or oversight. So this will, I think, be great for council because it will really give more robust reporting back. And I think that we were a little shy on that the first go round. So that's something that I think is positive and you can look forward to. The strategy after that, the local strategy, that strategy is really serving to support individuals before their situation escalates by offering to connect them to navigators that are skilled in information referrals. So this is when police, OPP, encounter someone that is maybe not a chargeable offense, knowing that there's a high volume of their calls are not chargeable offenses. They're social in nature, and so often they're having to kind of refer out. They're making the referrals out to different organizations. This will make the referrals in through Community Connections 211, where a navigator can really do a deeper dive with that person who's in need to find out and unpack all their potential needs and kind of soft transfer them or navigate them to the right supports and services. And I think that that's going to be really incredible because we know that 211 or Community Connections has really, really robust data potential. And so to be able to share that back with police and with providers, again, only aggregate data ever, but talking about whether the highest volume of needs or calls coming in and what they actually kind of spill out into additional needs is really going to be important for planning and moving forward. Next slide, please. Okay, so how this plan will be actioned. So now that we have very clear strategies, there's the expectation that for each strategy, there's a strategy lead. And so that's articulated in the plan, and that strategy lead or organization or group, however it's identified in the plan, will coordinate activities, track the progress, and report to the designated committee. So the designated committee in this case is the Geographical Municipal Coordinating Committee. So that's referred to as the GMCC, and that has representation from each of the municipalities and also the detachment commanders for each of the two OPPs that serve in this plan. And so it will be up to them with support from the county, and it has been typically myself in the past to support those strategy leads to start working on those strategies. And the expectation is that council will receive a report back annually at a minimum. Next slide, please. So pending any amendments to the plan that was presented to you in your package, that the plan would be considered for adoption on or before July 1st. That's in keeping with the requirements and the legislation, and that if it was adopted, that it be posted digitally to the municipal website within 30 days of adoption. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carrie. Questions or comments from members of council on this matter? Councillor Ego?
Thank you, and through your worship, thank you. Thank you, Carrie, for the presentation. Interesting, well needed, and I'm really happy to see the collaboration between communities. I think that's been sorely needed, and that you're working on that is really, I think, a good step forward. I know we have the Poverty Roundtable that I imagine you work with, or do you?
Through your worship, in response to the councillor, so I don't work with, I'm familiar with the Poverty Roundtable. I'm familiar with the session that you held. I actually did attend the session, the planning session. I can't remember when that was. It feels like it might have been about a year ago. But yes, so I'm not, intimately connected with it, but I do have awareness of it.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. And I liked how you broke it down and what you hope to accomplish in 4 years. You just made it more tangible and doable rather than running the whole gamut. I like that in your presentation. And I have a question. What do you find, or have you as yet found the best way to reach people that need these services?
Thank you. And through your worship, in response to the councillor, I think that's a really important question, and I think that is a question that communities struggle with ongoing. When we're talking about housing or homelessness, or we're talking about mental health and addiction, while we did a resident survey, I think it's important to note, and it's articulated right in the plan, that this plan did not capture every voice. And certainly when you do an online survey, if you look at the demographics of the survey respondents, you can see typically it is one demographic, a certain age group, and so it is missing voices. One of the things that the county did want to support, and it's not mentioned in the plan, but it's something that has been arranged, is that when we look at that first year of implementation, to go out to the people that are actually experiencing some of these struggles in their life, but doing it through those trusted providers. So for me as a consultant to say, I'm going to hold a focus group with people who may be struggling with addiction issues, they don't know me, it's not a safe, trusted environment. So I would suggest, and this is kind of the proposed plan moving forward, that we work with those providers that have the regular access to people who are consuming or partaking of their services. They've developed those relationships, they have that level of trust, and working through the providers to seek the input of people to say, does this make sense? This is what we're thinking of doing. Like, how does that land for you? Can you see yourself participating? So I would suggest that moving forward, we do connect with people who are experiencing whatever those areas of risk are, but we do it through providers. And I think the other really important piece is for anybody that is giving their time to participate in anything beyond a simple kind of question here and there, that they be recognized and compensated. And so that's something that the county has offered in a kind of a moderate way to be able to support. And I think that's absolutely fantastic.
Thanks. I'm glad I asked that question. I do know our fire chief last season and throughout the year really does reach out to people. So when you say, our first responders in this town are amazing. The council knows that firsthand. So, but your more in-depth answer I appreciate. So I'll leave this to other councillors. Thank you very much, Carrie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Timms?
Thank you, Your Worship. Mine is a comment, and to build on Councillor Ego, I feel quite strongly that there is such a large number of youth in our community that are completely being underserviced and slipping through the cracks, mainly because they don't have the expertise to navigate for themselves. So I see a lot of, because I'm raising a granddaughter who wants to be a social worker, I'm aware of many kids that are living precariously, and I'm sure that even the school doesn't necessarily know. So it's just a concern of mine. I'm not sure that there's an answer here, but if we can stop the situations when young people are in need, we can perhaps prevent a lifetime of poverty and addiction that may be to follow. So it's just a big concern, and I don't know if you have a comment, Carrie, or just thank you for letting me express my concern.
Through your worship, to the councillor, I think that you'll be very encouraged by the transitional aged youth strategy, really capturing that ages of 12 to 25. Their work is to address exactly what you were suggesting is a concern and an issue in community, and they recognize it. What you don't see is what's in other community safety and well-being plans across Simcoe County, and there are some other very interesting place-based strategies that other communities are rolling out that I have the privilege of working across all of them, and so I can take the great lessons learned and opportunities and bring it back to communities to say, Kuchiching has cooked this up in their community. They're doing a fantastic job with it, and they've kind of worked some of the kinks out. Do you have an interest in taking this on? And that leads me to another really important point, that while you look at the plan and you see, okay, well, there's 4 strategies in it, community safety and well-being is a very large umbrella. And we know that there's excellent work happening that's not in the plan. And there's actually a page that talks about beyond the plan. So we're going to kind of keep tabs on that and see how we can integrate it into our strategies and what we can learn from that. This is really moving from a project or program kind of lens to a systems lens. And I think that that's where you have the greatest impact, is when you start looking at systems and then connecting systems. And so I think that over the next 4 years, there's going to be some very exciting work coming out. All communities have real interest in youth because they recognize that youth are really struggling, and that if you're looking at changing the trajectory of kind of community health and well-being, you have to start early with youth because it changes the trajectory for them. So I appreciate your comments. I think that you might want to keep an eye out for some of the work and the updates that are coming from these strategies, and also have confidence that some of the other work that's going to happen that's being kind of worked up in another community might take root here at some point in the future. But there is a focus on youth across all providers and all sectors, and I think that that's important for everyone to know that there is attention and awareness around this.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship. Thank you, Carrie. That's really encouraging to hear, and I will keep my eye open on all this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Timms. Going to look to our Fire Chief, Chief Williams.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to sort of build on what Carrie had mentioned and reassure Council. My personal experience in the last few years is that there is no lack of programs and services available in this community and county-wide. In fact, I believe that in most cases, we probably do have services available that can help people, not in every situation, but in most situations. The difficult part is the navigation of the system, and we take for granted how easy it is for many of us to jump on the internet or pick up the phone call and just simply ask for help. I do appreciate this, that this updated plan focuses on data collection, because that's something we probably haven't been doing as well in the past, and it really focuses on using systems such as 211 in order to connect the dots for people. And I could give you an example in the last 2 weeks where we took someone who had an immediate crisis and need for immediate accommodation, and we were able to work with our partners at the county. We were able to move that person through the 211 system to a motel voucher program to offer immediate accommodation for the individual, and then connect them with a housing coordinator. Their path isn't over yet. They've got many challenges ahead of them, but the system is built to help those individuals, but getting to them to that point can be really, really difficult. On the point of the youth that are struggling in our community, that is real. We certainly have seen young individuals that are even homeless, and where we can try and connect with them and then offer them some direction, but we do have good programs in place. You just need to look at our public library, you need to look at our youth center, you need to look at partners like Home Horizon that are there and available and ready to help, but we need to get these people to the available programs, which is a challenge. So we are working on it. I believe it is improving, but I don't think that work is ever going to be completed.
Thank you, Chief. Councillor Timms, go ahead.
One quick follow-up. I was really delighted to see Deputy Mayor Snell looking for suitcases for Home Horizon, which told me that some of those kids are getting moved into better, more stable accommodations. So I just wanted to shout out to Deputy Mayor Snell for that. I understand, moving your stuff in a garbage bag is not a good feeling. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Mayor Snell.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. Yeah, and that situation was just another example of how generous our community is. It was one post, and within literally 10 minutes, my Jeep was full of beautiful suitcases that the facility was able to use, and even more than what they even needed. So we have an amazing community. One question I had was around the data piece. Like, when you look at the new portal, Open Simco, I think is what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just double check, sorry. Yeah, opensimco.ca. So there you can go on live time data, where you can see the capacity or spaces available in shelters. You can see spaces available in childcare systems across the county. You can see the aggregate sort of rental market across the county. So if you're looking for obtainable housing, the affordable housing inventory is in there as well. I think the county is really doing a phenomenal job in trying to create one place that people can go to find information. But one question I had is to sort of to Councillor Tim's point and to the Chief's point, is that, accessing social services or any sort of supportive services, especially if you have a mental health or addiction issue, is just a meat grinder, right? And it becomes a very gnarly process unless you know how to move through those waters and are really a strong advocate, or you have somebody supporting you through that. Is there a plan through this regional strategy to do a regional communication information, like marketing plan, in terms of either pushing this portal or pushing some resources, or aggregating your marketing dollars together to have one unified voice that sort of gets the information out there?
Carrie, are you going to take a stab at that, or will the chief?
No, well, certainly, thank you, Your Worship. I don't know if that question was directed to Chief Williams or myself, but I'm very familiar with the portal. The data piece that I'm talking about in the plan is actually being led by the person who is in charge of that portal. So that's Jonathan Katz, the business intelligence manager, who's brilliant at the county of Simcoe. And while I can't speak to whether there's a unified communication plan or approach, what you will see come from community safety and well-being, and I can't speak to any of the other projects or initiatives across Simcoe County, is that we are going to look at communicating back some of the findings of, we're not going to communicate back what's on the portal because people can go and self-consume, self-select. But what we're doing with the data is we're going to kind of triangulate the data. So we will take the portal, we will take the GIS mapping, we will take the OPP data, and we will see what kind of story is that telling us. And then in a public-facing way, there will be certainly kind of provider data shared back that can be used for strategy and planning. And then I think there will be a public-facing component to that as well to help people understand what's going on in community in a way that is kind of meaningful, relevant, and consumable for the public. So I see potential kind of two-pronged data sharing communication back. Now the marketing piece, I'm not quite sure. That's certainly a comment that I can take back when I start doing some of this implementation work around the data, but I'm not sure if Chief Williams has anything to add to that.
Thank you, Worship. I believe that responsibility would be at the county level, and probably best suited to bring that up as a request at maybe county council. But it is important. I appreciate it.
Anything further, Deputy Mayor Snell? No? All right. Any other questions or comments from members of council? Seeing none, thank you very much, Carrie, for the presentation, and Chief, for your input as well. We do have recommended motions here. The first one, that the presentation by Carrie Warner to Council pertaining to South Georgian Bay and Springwater Community Safety Plan and Wellbeing Plan update be received for information. Could I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Moved by Councillor Councillor Ego, and seconded by Councillor DeLeo. All in favor? That carries. Item 7.2.2 is the Georgian Bay Springwater Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. And the recommended motion there is that the report titled South Georgian Bay and Springwater Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan 2025 to 2029 to the council meeting of June 25th, 2025 be received, and that council adopt the attached South Georgian Bay and Springwater Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan 2025 to 2029. Mover and a seconder for this, please. Moved by Councillor Tim, seconded by Deputy Mayor Snell. All in favor? That carries unanimously. All right, we're now moving on to item number 7.3, was the Wasaga Beach Fire Department and Camp Molly, and I believe our Deputy Chief, Dan Bell, is here in attendance to speak to this today. Deputy Chief, welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. Good morning, Mayor and Council. I'm happy to present to you a final wrap-up of our immensely successful Camp Molly event that we hosted here in Wasaga Beach earlier this month. As you know, Camp Molly is a free 4-day camp for young women aged 15 to 18 who may or may not have a desire to join the emergency services. The main focus for the camps is for each lady to empower and challenge themselves and to challenge each other while learning a little bit of the emergency services. In our Camp Molly, the ladies were asked to perform some auto extrications, medical scenarios, forcible entry, fire dispatch, fire prevention, fire investigations, ropes and knots, some live fire evolutions with the mobile live fire training unit from the OFM, as well as our camp had the unique experience of platoons touring the Beausoleil First Nations Fire Department's Coast Guard Auxiliary Rescue Vessel and taking it for some simulated rescues out onto Georgian Bay. The groups all seemed to rather enjoy throwing the rescue mannequin overboard than hauling it back over. For the first couple of days of the week, we had guest speakers come in for a lunch and learn to tell the campers about the journey that they went through to get to where they are in their careers. On Thursday, we had Simcoe Paramedic Chief Sarah Mills with Commander Chantal Demers, Huronia West OPP Inspector Brooke McRoberts, along with Staff Sergeant Christina Schroeder, and Oakville firefighter and PWHLPA Secretary Liz Knox. On Friday, OFM investigator Jill Carter and her team addressed the group. But all was very, very well received by the young ladies. In total, we had 33 campers, both from the area of Simcoe County, Wasaga Beach, but as far away as Oakville, Burlington, and Seaforth, and more than 20 additional volunteers each day to assist with instruction and mentorship. It was a busy but amazing fun 4 days, highlighted by our formal graduation on Sunday, after the Firefighter Combat Challenge, which all campers participated in. Chief Williams and I were guilted into taking a turn completing the course, and we both somehow survived the experience, although Chief Williams did insist I complete it with defib pads attached. I would now like to share the short video that we played at the grad with only a fraction of the pictures that were taken.
Shake it off. shake, but no one knows how far it goes. All the time wondering where I need to be is behind me. I'm on my own towards unknown. Every turn I take, every trail I track is a choice I make. Now I can't turn back from the great unknown. Where I go alone, where I long to go.
As you can see, Chief Williams still has it. Lots of smiling faces. In late 2024, Council approved a $10,000 budget line in order to guarantee that we would be able to fund the camp. I'm happy to let Mayor and Council know today that through donations received, proceeds from the sales of some out-of-service equipment, and revenue generated from our cost recovery program, Firemark, we have fully funded the camp without having to rely on the tax-based council-approved monies. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the very generous donation of the building materials for the burn cells from Beach Builders Home Hardware here in Wasaga Beach. It was much appreciated, and that has been forwarded on to the next Camp Molly in Markham, the units. It was, by all accounts, a very successful camp, and in speaking with a number of parents throughout the camp, and as well as at the graduation, the ladies all seemed to have an amazing time. This camp would not have been possible without the support of Mayor and Council, Chief Williams, the amazingly engaged staff at Wasaga Beach Fire Department, as well as the numerous other town staff members who assisted in a number of ways. We also had a number of Camp Molly staff, along with volunteers who regularly volunteer with them, who were incredibly helpful. Thank you, and I am now available to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chief, and you're very humble, but don't forget to thank yourself there, because I understand from Chief Williams that none of this would have been possible without your hard work and dedication to this, so thank you so much for that. All right, we'll open the floor to questions or comments from members of council. Councillor Eagle?
Thank you, and through your worship. Thank you. I'm glad I'm first. And I won't take up too much time because Councillor White, I'm sure, has lots to say. But, I mean, that was just a flop of a week, wasn't it? It was just, you know, the smiles, the engagement. What they've learned is amazing. The empowerment and what you men have done in your whole department, you men and women and the volunteers. You just can't say. It's immeasurable and life-changing for those that participated and came, and will only grow in your dedication to that. So we can't thank you enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. That is nice to hear, but you're making me blush, so please.
It could be worse. You could be blushing with the defibrillator attached to you. And I didn't see a picture of that, so I'm very disappointed, actually. That would have been neat to see.
There may have been some creative editing for the video.
Councillor Boulanger?
Yeah, I'm going to leave most of it to Councillor White too, but I've just, attended one of the days when they were participating in all the events and then in the graduation. And I think this is certainly something that could be very effective in being expanded to every young lady and every young man, for that opinion, maybe in a separate course. But the educational value and the character building and teamwork value of this is just, it was very evident. And what a way of, thinking outside the box of a normal high school classroom and the impact it has. So congratulations to our fire department, and my understanding that there were an awful lot of volunteers involved, and many of those follow Camp Molly from location to location. So it's just fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor DeLeo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Great job. It almost reminds me of Chicago Fire, that show, Girls on Fire. They have that program. That's what it reminded me of. But it looked great. I'm almost envious I wasn't part of it. I would have liked to have been part of the girls that drag people around. But that's good. But I like what Councillor Belanger had said, to open it up and maybe have one for young males as well. I'm sure they would, really appreciate that, and I'm sure all of council would approve that. So going forward, let's hope. But thank you both. Thank you, everybody that volunteered. Great job. Great job.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Timms?
Thank you, Your Worship, and I won't reiterate what's already been said, but I was fortunate also to be able to do a drop-in and attend the graduation ceremony, and I'll tell you, it got a huge dose of civic pride from that. You could go into those sessions, and the girls were so focused that they weren't even paying attention to people like me walking in as a fly on the wall. I was going to also say those loyal volunteers that follow that camp from place to place all over the province are really unpaid, passionate employees of the camp, and that's pretty exciting. And I did want to say kudos to the business community. I wasn't aware that it ended up being fully funded, but I know that they were fed by our local businesses, and especially happy to hear, but not surprised, that Beach Builders Home Hardware donated so generously. So I went through a full range of emotions at the graduation ceremony, and again, looking at that fantastic video. So appreciation to the entire team at the fire department. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Timms. Councillor White?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I had first-hand knowledge of this. My daughter took the initiative to apply to the camp and was accepted, which turned out to be a surprise, but also well-received from myself. Camp Molly itself is a very well-run organization that I think did start in the States to recognize the first known female firefighter. And it's done so well, but it's only done as well as its host community can do. And the connection that you specifically, Dan, had with the campers was amazing. They even gave him a promotion to chief. I said he's the deputy chief, and no, he's chief to us. Sorry, Chief. But yeah, no, your connection to the young ladies was incredible to see. To Beach Builders, this community has a lot of great donors in it, but Beach Builder, Home Hardware there, you see the folks at every turn giving to our community, and I appreciate that, and I think that we can't say that enough. But what an impressive set of results of the competitions. I was there at the end for all the different teams, and to see that it was a 1 second differential between the first and second teams, that's an amazing show that they really got the program, they really leaned into it, and they tried their hardest, so I thought that was really great to see. My daughter took me for a tour of each one of the installations, including the burn units and the auto extrication, which she thought was pretty neat. And I was able to see other campers give their parents tours of each of the little challenges that they had to do. And they're really impressed with their own ability, but also with the ability to have this for them to do. And again, just to the female participation, there was a firefighter there from Tiny, I think, a young lady. I met her when she was talking with some of the other firefighters, and also all the different presenters from all the different organizations. To see a strong female presence there was really encouraging, especially to a father with lots of daughters in the house. So again, congratulations, not only to your team and everybody there too, but that special connection that you had, Dan, with the campers. I think that can't be oversaid enough. Thanks again.
Thank you, Councillor White. Deputy Mayor Snell.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. You can't help but to tear up when you watch that video, you know? Just like at the grad ceremony, I was sitting there and I'm like, oh, I'm sitting in front of all these people and all I'm doing is dripping. I forgot to pack tissue because you're so proud. You know, you're so proud and excited for these young ladies to have this opportunity to discover all new parts of themselves. Whether they go into the fields or not, they're going to take that lifelong skill into so many different applications, whether it's having the courage to climb the ladder or to take the big piece of equipment to cut open the car. It's life-changing. And I think this Camp Molly is just another example of where your department continues to lead in our community with the emergency preparedness event that was done, you know, last year, or the year before. This is just another example that really shows the level of best practice that this department is operating in and really leading in our community. I also just want to say, you know, Councillor White mentioned it, you know, in terms of the female leadership. I think any opportunity that we can to show, you know, other young women, other women who have come through the ranks and cleared some of the path, and, you know, like our own Sarah Mills, right? Like, she's such an amazing leader in our paramedic services for the county. But not only to see the females, but to see strong men as well, supporting the program, encouraging them on, and whatnot. I think it's absolutely life-changing. It changes their resume, it changes their leadership style, it changes a sisterhood. And that's what I saw at the graduation ceremonies, when those teams were coming up to get their awards, and when they were cheering each other on, watching their videos, it was now a new tribe that could support them in all their things coming up in their life. So, and that last photo, I hope we print it off and frame it and keep it in your department so you could see it every day to be so proud. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Snell. It's for those of you who know me, I'm a bit of a crybaby. I cry watching Winnie the Pooh. So these things get emotional for me, and listening to the passion from council here, and of course knowing the passion with our chief, our deputy chief, and our firefighters. It is really a great moment in time for Wasaga Beach. But I was also able to get over there and see some of the training, and our fire prevention officer was kind enough to take me around and show me each of the installations and take me through some of them. And I want to thank the girls who participated, because I think for the first time in my married life I was able to win an argument with my wife. And I want to thank the girls for that, because we argue almost every night. Close the bedroom door, don't close the bedroom door. I close the door, she says, don't close the door. I said, if there's a fire, we want the door closed. So inevitably the door doesn't get closed usually. But I was able to take my wife by, because I was shocked, absolutely shocked, at the one unit with the bed in it, where when I walked up to it, and Chris Ellery was amazing at explaining this to me. There's another, firefighter who really knows this stuff. But, standing outside this building, you wouldn't know there was anything happened inside. And then he opened the door, and it was just unbelievable, the damage that took only 4 minutes. From the time it actually ignites to the point it was at. So I was sure to go home and get Joanne, bring her back in the evening, sneak back there and say, I want to show you something, and explain that to her. Since then, our bedroom door is closed. So thank you to the young ladies who participated in this, and for helping the mayor win the first argument ever with his wife. So that should also be on a plaque somewhere, because there will never be another one, I'm sure of it. But, I think what's most important for me, I've been involved with camps, the Tim Horton Children Foundation camp, and other camps, and we always hear about these camps and how not only fun they are and the experience there is, but they're life-changing. And I will tell you that being there, to Councillor Tim's point, a fly on the wall, not a single person probably even recognized me being there, because these young ladies were focused. And even the ones that were on a bit of a break were focused in their discussion around what they were doing or had been doing. And then to go back for graduation, to have an opportunity to speak to a couple of the young ladies when I was there the first time, and then to see that those same young ladies during graduation, just the change in their confidence and their demeanor and how they carried themselves. Again, you could tell that this experience, whether they go on to be firefighters or not, you should be very proud of yourself that you have made a significant change and impact in their life, letting them know who they are, how strong they truly are, and that they can attain anything if they just work hard. And so I can't go on enough about what an amazing experience it was, not only for these young ladies and for you, but for each of us to be able to even be a part and to experience that. And I certainly hope we can do it again. And I'll be the first to say, let's give them 20 grand the next time if we need it, because I don't think we can do enough when we look at this type of education and life-changing experience. But, you know, it really also showed me that the fire industry really is changed. It has changed dramatically from a very male-dominant type of profession to, you know, the young lady from Springwater. Not a very big gal, but boy, was mighty and determined. So, you know, it was just a great experience all around. I can't thank you, Deputy Chief, and all your staff. And again, commend everyone from Camp Molly who volunteers and participates. I hope we get to see this again in the not-too-distant future. I know it was a ton of work. But I think also worth noting is, you know, and I heard this from the chief about you, Dan, is that, you know, when this package comes to you, it's kind of pretty vague. It's kind of, here's everything we want to do, but the rest is up to you. And the fact that you spent countless hours taking that on of your own time even, to making sure that that was an experience of a lifetime, to bring in the boat from Bosley. I mean, that takes work and it takes coordination. And, you know, for them to not only be able to cut up cars, fight fires, do search and rescue, but even on the water, I mean, they did it all. I don't think, did we miss anything that a firefighter may or may not encounter in their career? I don't think so. It was pretty robust for a few days. I'm sure those girls are still sleeping. And I'll just end with the fact that I do want to see you do that challenge with that defibrillator attached to you. I'm looking forward to that, Chief. So if you could set that up, I'm sure we'd all like to join. All right. Anything further? Councillor Blanchet?
Thank you for coming back to me, Mayor. I just had one more thought, and that was based on our last presentation about some of our youth that sort of fall off the path, and whether selecting youth that are struggling and putting them through a program like this, whether or not it would really make a difference in their lives. And it's maybe something to think about.
Excellent point, Councillor. Thanks very much. And again, last but not least, I'd be remiss if I didn't, again, thank all of our local businesses, our business community. This is a community where our business comes, they come to the forefront every time when we ask them to, as well as our citizens. So again, what a great community we live in, and we should be happy knowing that we're blessed to do so. We do have a recommended motion that Deputy Fire Chief Dan Bell, that the presentation by Deputy Chief, Fire Chief Dan Bell to Council pertaining to Camp Molly be received for information. A mover and a seconder for this, please. Moved by Councillor Tim, seconded by Councillor Eagle. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Moving on to item number 8 is delegations. We have no delegations today. Item number 9, government relations. We do have Beach Drive construction and road closure, and I'm going to look to our CAO and our GM Public Works to speak to this. Andrew?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'll start, and then if General Manager Lalonde would like to add any details, that'd be appreciated. As you are no doubt aware, Beach Drive has now been closed between Spruce Street and First Street. Signage will be installed over the coming days, advising tourist visitors about wayfinding, providing notice of the closure, and we will also be installing signage to thank the province for their funding commitment to the redevelopment of Beach Drive. In terms of access, there is access to the beach from the far east, east of Spruce Street, far west, west of First Street, and luckily, we are also going to be able to provide a mid-block crossing at Playland. That will not be a permanent access point, but the contractor will keep that open as much as possible. Food trucks are going to be arriving shortly. We have washrooms available at the east end, west end of Beach Drive, as well as some temporary porta potties around Playland parking lot. I do want to note that the self-cleaning washroom has been postponed for 1 year. This was at the request of the province, just as we are dealing with land transactions, potential transfer. They didn't want any permanent structures installed that would complicate the transfer. So we've pushed that to next spring. It's unfortunate, but again, it's already been ordered. It will be available for early next spring. The contractor will be installing hoarding over the next couple days to delineate the construction zone. We have coordinated all of these changes with emergency providers, fire and OPP, and construction will begin shortly. I don't know, Kevin, do you want to share any thoughts around construction and what happens first, et cetera?
Your Worship, through you. So in terms of their staging or their first phase of construction, we will see the storm sewer installation start at the Main Street Bridge. That's the new outlet that's going to take place, and they'll pull that pipe down the Main Street corridor and then westerly along Beach Drive, and then finally completing the reconstruction of First Street. So that's their first priority this year. So as the CO has indicated, traffic control and vehicular limitations, we'll say, have been implemented, and you'll see the construction signage up there now with some of the supplemental signage to come shortly in terms of notifying beachgoers and businesses of where to go. There will be an opportunity for vehicles to still, I guess, loop down on Beach Drive between 2nd and 3rd, so we have reopened that so they can have a peek from their vehicle down between that short section of Beach Drive. And we do have line painting coming in this evening, which will touch up the on-street parking on 3rd Street, as well as that short stretch on Beach Drive between 2nd and 3rd, and enhance some of the accessible stalls down there, as well as some of the line painting that's required at the temporary turning circle at Spruce Street. So lots of activity going on, and there's still more signage to come, but the closure's in place so our contractor can get underway as soon as possible.
Thank you very much, Andrew and Kevin. Any questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Timms?
Thank you. I have a question through your worship to the CAO, and you may not have the answer on this. I'm getting a lot of people asking me about the black hoarding, and I'm telling them the great story about what's coming, a full historical education on our heritage. But are you able to, or do you know what the timeline is on that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It's installed. It was installed late last night, early this morning. So you can go today and take in this wonderful hoarding that was supplied by Stonebridge Building Group.
Thank you, through your worship. I took the wrong route into work this morning. I usually do the beach route. The other question that I have that I'm getting a lot from members of the public is, will this summer the road construction affect the sandbar and the shops that are just in that block of space that are still operating?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and Kevin may want to add, we will do everything we can to ensure as the least disruption possible. So Sandbar, the small container businesses just west of Main Street, they will remain open. It does create some challenges, but I'm sure the contractor and Kevin's great team will do everything possible to minimize that. One note is that the beach bar is going to be removing the bar. So that will not be up and running this summer.
Councillor?
I'm surprised to hear that because I have a HVAC company in my family that was trying to get their stoves working. So I thought they were opening there and had even shared that information. So, so are they moving in? Is it too soon to say where they're moving?
Through Mr. Mayor, no, they're simply going to be removing their equipment. We were unable to reach agreeable terms on their lease.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor White?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, my wife convinced me to go down there the other night for a little tour around, and although there are some shops still on that original Main Street site, the Beach One Smokehouse is definitely open, but what a surprise.
Remain there and is accessible by the parking lot there. Good. All right, next was Councillor Belanger.
Thank you through the mayor, and very excited that this is getting started. However, prior to this council reopening Beach Drive and a couple of times last year when Beach Drive was temporarily closed and we were still able to go down to a Spruce Street parking lot and turn around, it was an absolute nightmare for cars to exit back, coming back onto Main Street or Mosley. I can remember one day there that I was down there for 45 minutes and finally stopped an OPP on a bike to direct traffic at Main Street. So that will happen. So I don't know if the solution is a temporary light or if there's already a plan in place, but that was a significant issue.
If I could, through Mr. Mayor, and I'll let Kevin talk about traffic control. I think that issue last year was exacerbated because of the parking situation on the point with the provincial park and the change to the reservation system. So that was backing up a lot of cars combined with vehicles turning around. So it was kind of a mini perfect storm. We're going to do our best to address that this year. We have requested that the province change their practices. I think they're going to do their best to try and mitigate having cars backed up. Kevin, did you want to talk about the traffic control?
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Belanger, a key component really is to inform visitors and residents ahead of getting over the bridge or approaching 3rd Street. So there's going to be digital signboards advising motorists that Beach Drive is closed and to use alternate locations, so as well as signage itself. There's road closure signage, not a through road, so we're going to try to provide as much advance notice. We know individuals will still drive down there, but we're going to do our best to provide that notice. But traffic control has been reviewed and is deemed appropriate given the provincial policies that we follow for Ontario traffic. But we do realize that it will be a busy corridor. There are still businesses there. We still have a parking lot there. And it is still the primary access to Janetta parking lot, right, with Ontario Park. So we do know there's still going to be a lot of traffic to go through there. However, we're going to try to inform them as much as possible to mitigate or give them the option to find alternate parking so they're not driving to the end of Spruce Street only to turn around. So it will be inconvenient. There will be congestion. We've seen it before, and unfortunately we will see it again, but we'll continue to monitor it. But in terms of temporary signals, no, there aren't any plans for that at this stage.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments from members of council? I did have a conversation actually with John Fisher just yesterday at the EOC in preparation for the long weekend. He did indicate that Beach Area 2 and Beach Area 1 parking lots will be fully manned gates this year. So if there's an issue, they can just, as they did near the end of last year, they'll just forget the reservation, just get people through and get them out of the way. You already see on social media, comments about, opening Beach Drive and now we've closed it again. We haven't kept our word. And I mean, it goes on and on and on. But at the end of the day, here's what I will say to the good folks at Wasaga Beach. Patience. This is going to be short-term pain. for decades and decades of long-term gain. And I think the vast majority of our residents do get that, and I hear it and see it. Every day I'm in the community, I'm being talked to by residents who couldn't be more thrilled that this is finally moving forward. You know, as I've said many, many times, in the summer months, if we have traffic congestion, although it's inconvenient to our residents, they need to teach themselves to shop on Wednesdays or Thursdays, not Fridays and Saturdays on a hot weekend. But, you know, traffic congestion is a good problem to have. It means people are here. Not only are they enjoying it, but they're spending dollars to help our businesses and spending money on parking to help revenues to keep taxes lower and so on and so forth. So, you know, we can do all the signage. We've learned this many times over the years. We can do all the signage, all the direction we want in the world. People are still going to go down there in hopes that maybe they'll get through once or something. But, and I get it. It's such a beautiful place to be. You can still do the loop between 2nd and 3rd if you really feel the need to do so. And I'm sure that's going to cause some congestion problems too at different times throughout the summer. But folks, just be patient, please. I ask you. I think when this is all said and done, I think we'll be hard-pressed to have many folks who will actually go down there and see it for themselves and enjoy it for themselves, that they won't agree that it is short-term pain for very, very long-term gain. And so it's exciting. I can't wait, and I will tell you, I was by this morning, as I do every morning on my way in. The hoarding looks amazing. I'm going to do it this afternoon, hopefully, or tomorrow. Start at one end and go to the other, and I'm sure by the time you're finished, you'll have a complete long-term understanding of the history of this community. Stonebridge, I think, has done an amazing job there. It looks phenomenal. The one question I had, we did have a site triangle issue coming out of 2nd Street with the hoarding. Have we fixed that problem?
Yes, Your Worship. We worked with the developer who was quite willing to work with us to have some of that those sightline issues addressed.
Great, thanks very much. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I do have a recommended motion. No, there is no motion for this one. Thanks very much then, gentlemen. We'll now move on to item number 10, which is staff reports, and the following items have been pulled and moved to matters for consideration to be voted on separately, and there's just one, 10.2. Are there any other comments from council or staff on this consent reports? Seeing none, the recommended motion is that consent items listed under staff reports and all the recommendations contained therein be adopted, excluding items pulled, and moved to matters for consideration to be voted on separately. Could I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Moved by Councillor Eagle, seconded by Deputy Mayor Snell. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Moving on to item number 11, which is correspondence items. None have been pulled here. Any questions or comments on correspondence? Seeing none, the recommended motion is that the following consent list items under correspondence be received for information. Mover and a seconder for this, please. Moved by Councillor DeLeo, seconded by Councillor White. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Item number 12 is minutes of boards and committees. Any questions with respect to any of this? No items pulled. Seeing none, the recommended motion is the consent list items under minutes and boards and committees be received for information. Mover and a seconder for this, please. Moved by Councillor Tim, seconded by Councillor White. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Moving on to item number 13, matters for consideration. We just have the one matter that was pulled by Councillor Ego, and this is with respect to the application for zoning bylaw amendment Z0122 and draft plan of subdivision PS 0122-2025-0626-31. Councillor Ego, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and through your worship. Firstly, I would like to thank staff, in particular Planner Samantha, for making time for me on a busy Friday afternoon, and she didn't rush me at all. So thank you for that. And for other staff that were assisting me, I asked many questions. I was bugging them and writing, and all were patient with me. So I want to say that right up front. So I have asked to have 10.2 pulled, as I would like the opportunity for a fulsome discussion with council and staff on this very important proposed subdivision. I want to be very clear. I am not against high-density housing. In fact, I am very much in favor of it. I also respect Fremont as a premium developer. However, at this point, I am asking, is this current proposal good for Wasaga Beach? Our vision statement reads, Wasaga Beach will inspire the world as a global leader in sustainability, creativity, innovation, and fun, with thriving businesses, safe, inclusive, and complete neighborhoods. Our natural beauty, the Nottawasaga River, Georgian Bay, and the world's longest freshwater beach. A place where people choose to come to create memories that will last a lifetime. I am very concerned with the back-to-back townhouses. I can see them working in a very urban city landscape, where you have amenities outside your door, such as high-speed transit, restaurants, parks, museums, swimming pools, shop. Basically, a transit and walkable cosmopolitan area. We do not have that. I have a tough time counting a balcony as an outdoor amenity. Fremont, you are a premium builder and developer. You guys know what you are doing. We are not Brampton North, nor do we want to be. I feel this proposal is just too hard, too dense, not enough green space for Wasaga Beach. We are still considered cottage country. I'm sure you could find a way to soften and pretty this up, perhaps with a few casual spots throughout the subdivision to just sit and relax, possibly near the naturally protected area. I really don't know, but I'm quite sure you can figure it out. I have no doubt that touches like that would make for very happy residents living in a spot they could enjoy and be proud of. I hope you take up the challenge and work on this proposal to align with Wasaga Beach's vision, a place where people choose to come to create memories that will last a lifetime. So for those above reasons, I am asking Council to refer this back to staff and Fremont for further consideration and discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ego. Members of Council, I'll look to Councillor Timms next.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Councillor Ego. I won't reiterate a lot of what you said, but I feel the same way that back-to-back and stacked townhouses strike me as being quite urban and a very new built form for Wasaga Beach. I believe it's important that we ensure this housing type will be successful and a positive fit for our community, especially since I expect that we will be seeing more of this development coming forward. While I appreciate that this proposal conforms to all applicable policies and that staff are recommending approval, I do have several areas of concern I'd like to share for the record, and along with one key question. So with respect to parking, I recognize that parking on nearby side streets falls outside of the scope of the application. However, I want to stress my concern that this development may not realistically provide enough on-site parking for the number of units proposed, which has increased from 306 to 317 since a public meeting. I'm worried that this shortfall will lead to overflow parking spilling into the surrounding neighborhoods. And with regards to the amenity space, it does appear to me also to be very limited. Balconies are small, and there's a noticeable lack of green and shared outdoor space for residents to enjoy. And all of those come to the next concern of mine, which is storage. I'm also concerned that storage options are insufficient. Townhouses typically require space for bicycles, in our case, beach gear, and other personal belongings, especially in a community like ours where outdoor recreation is a big part of life. So my question is, finally, I have concerns regarding the comments from the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, as well as those received from Public Works. How can we ensure that these issues they've raised will be properly considered and adequately mitigated if this application would be approved today? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Any comments from staff with respect to those questions?
Certainly, thank you, Your Worship. And I'll just start by saying that obviously staff are here to provide recommendations. We would never debate council's thoughts on a development. That's amongst your peer group. And also, we're not here as advocates of the developer either, so just wanted to clarify that. On the councillor's two questions, and I have my friend Samantha Hanna here, who's going to jab me if I say something wrong, because she's more immersed in the file than I. Regarding the Ministry of Environment, I believe that comment was respect to 2 butternut trees, if I'm not mistaken. If Sam can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that based on the recommendations and the comments that we got from the ministry, there was 1 butternut tree that was a class 1, which is a tree that is diseased and is appropriate for removal. And my understanding is that the second tree was a class 2, and that the proponent has the opportunity to apply to the ministry to have a special exemption to have that tree removed. So it's actually the ministry who will determine whether or not that butternut tree should be or should not be removed. It's my understanding it probably could be. And the last comment, I believe, was with respect to the Public Works Department, and I assume that that was regarding the snow storage. Yeah. So obviously, snow storage, we had a pretty significant winter event this year. So snow storage is obviously something that we take very seriously and for consideration. In the context of this development, because it's a condominium development, the roads will be private roads. So Mr. Lalonde's staff will not be the ones responsible to go in there to remove the snow. It'll be the responsibility of the condominium corporation. And if I'm not mistaken, there will be warning clauses, as there normally are, in the subdivision agreement, warning the residents who choose to live in this development that it's their responsibility to remove the snow. When we get to detailed design, obviously what we're going to do is try to find areas for snow storage, which is pretty common in the site plan review process. And in those instances where they don't have enough snow storage, or the snow storage is filled up, then they will be responsible to remove their snow off their own premises, but it will not be the Public Works Department or the taxpayers' responsibility for that. And I'll let Sam say if she has anything to add to that.
Samantha, anything to add?
Thank you, Your Worship. The only thing I would add is that we do have specific conditions within the draft plan conditions regarding snow storage for the proposed development.
And I'm assuming those are the requirements that we require for minimum standards with respect to removal of snow?
That is correct.
All right, thank you very much. The next then is Councillor White.
Yes, thank you. Well, I do understand density is a fact of life, and in many cases an opportunity to make housing lower cost or even attainable cost. But to address some of the concerns around open spaces and parks, is it possible to use some of the environmentally protected lands as park space?
Through your worship, again, I'll rely on my friend beside me. It's not that the can't rely on it. It may be that it's not appropriate given the significance of the environmental protected areas. So if I'm not mistaken, there's actually 2. There's the environmental protection zone that we're applying. There's also the open space zone. So the open space zone is appropriate for recreational activities such as what Councillor White is doing. So there could be those opportunities. Well, there will be those opportunities because there are 2 amenity areas that are indicated. But I would not want to suggest to council that it's a foregone conclusion that they could also use the environmental protected areas. We can certainly look at that through the detailed design to see, but we would have to make sure that it's appropriate not only from a natural heritage perspective, but also from a natural hazard. The natural hazard is probably not as long as there's no permanent structures, it's probably okay. But I wouldn't want to suggest that it's a foregone conclusion that it's okay from a natural heritage perspective. So that would be something that we would have to work with Fremont and our consultants and potentially the NVCA to see if there's additional spaces that can be used in the EP areas.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Belanger?
Thank you. Through the mayor, I think all of us have been a little uncomfortable with, the intensification. It's new, and certainly our community hasn't seen a lot of it. But when I looked at this location and, the proximity to some new commercial, looking at it as potential, workforce kind of housing, that it might be at a lower price that would allow families that wouldn't otherwise be able to get into the market. Now, again, we don't know what the price is going to be, but the market will dictate, and generally with this kind of intensification, it's a little lower price. It's also in a very good location for transportation between Stayner, Collingwood. So I look at it, and as far as, amenities, it's proximity to the beach for families to be able to walk down in the evening to the beach, and that type of thing is positive. But I agree, the intensification and back-to-back townhomes are something maybe a little new to us, but certainly not new to Ontario. And I'm hoping that it will have a price point that will allow families to get into the market that would not otherwise be able to do so. So I appreciate all of the comments, and if there are small things that can be done to add to beautification, certainly we're looking at that throughout our town. But I believe the location lends itself well for intensification.
Thank you, Councillor Belanger. Any other questions or comments? Councillor DeLeo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to echo exactly what Councillor Belanger said. If they're passing all the conditions and they're willing to work with town, I don't see a problem with that. We're going to be seeing, like Councillor Belanger, we're going to be seeing more and more of that. And the fact where they're located, they're not like right smack downtown in Wasaga Beach, so I don't have a problem with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor DeLeo. Deputy Mayor Snell.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. One point that I was concerned about was under the application for zoning. It was 3.18, no person, what is now is no person shall erect any building or structure or use any lot in any zone unless access for vehicular traffic, blah, 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 blah. And they're requesting buildings and structures may be erected on lands that do not front onto a municipal street, and a private street shall be deemed to be a public street, which basically, if I understand that correctly, they can put up a shed with no issue, and they don't technically really have any land based on the design other than the front yard. Given that in order for two vehicles to be there, one would have to be in the garage, one would have to be in the driveway. They're going to be very challenged for storage. Are we sure that we've controlled the beautification of this project in particular? My first question, please.
Through your worship, to the Deputy Mayor, is it general provision 3.18 is the concern? Yes. Okay. I think the concern there is that your zoning bylaw, unlike a lot of other communities, doesn't have a general provision saying that when you're not fronting on a public road, you can't have a building. And that's because the general provisions in our zoning bylaw don't recognize, for whatever reason, the fact that we have a condominium corporations in the municipality that by nature don't have public roads. So it's not that we're allowing them to put buildings on their private roads, it's that our zoning bylaw fails to recognize that there's instances where you will have a building that doesn't front on a public road because it's a private road. So it's not that we're allowing them to build on public or private roads, it's that our zoning bylaw doesn't have a provision that recognizes condominiums and private roads, and I stand to be corrected, but I believe that's my planner is saying that I actually know what I'm talking about. So that was that's the explanation. It's a technical zoning amendment requirement that we do because our 20-year-old bylaw doesn't recognize condominiums, unlike in Collingwood where it was very prevalent and we had general provisions in the bylaw. So when we do the new zoning bylaw, we'll make sure that there's a provision so we don't have to come to you and vary it or amend it every single time we do a condo.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you for that clarification, Trevor. I just sort of echo some of the other concerns. I'm concerned about the snow load. Where does it go? Sight lines and being able to safely pull out of your driveway. I have a 4-car driveway, and it was difficult to pull out once the bank got as high as it did this winter. So definitely concerned on that, and the amount of parking spaces. You know, you look at Stonebridge. Stonebridge is a beautiful development, but one of the things you often hear from residents there is that if you have a larger vehicle or a truck, even an SUV, you can't park it in the garage and safely open your doors. So you have no choice but to put it in the driveway. Well, then your overflow traffic and visitors end up spilling onto the streets. And based on the sight line, it doesn't look like there's a lot of space there. And also to still get emergency vehicles up should that be needed, would be my concern. It's not really a question, just more of a comment if the developer is listening.
Chief, could you comment on the emergency vehicle access for us?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm sorry, I missed probably the first part of that question, but in every development, we do need to ensure that emergency vehicles have access. So we do have a fire route bylaw in place where fire routes are used, and it has a minimum width of a roadway and surface material that is required in order to accommodate the emergency vehicles. So our staff do help review these plans to make sure that they will work once implemented.
Okay. Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Would that be the case, Chief, where if you know, in reviewing that, do you make assumption that one of sides of the streets is lined with cars? Maybe there's a house party, there's something, because, you know, we've got some narrow streets like Dyer Drive. It's quite narrow if it's lined with vehicles. The development at the far east end is quite narrow in their laneways as well.
So where a fire route is required, the plans do indicate where parking and no parking is permitted. So it will actually tell us ahead of time where those no parking zones would be included. So we would take that into consideration. So we do have streets in town where parking is permitted on both sides of the streets. We have streets where you're only permitted on one side, and we have streets where there is no street parking. Typically in these more dense subdivisions, there is no parking on the streets. So that's where the additional visitor parking stalls are required.
All right, other questions or comments? Councillor DeLeo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question for you. If these are classified, are they classified as condos?
Through your worship, the final form will be freehold townhouses, but there will be a condominium element to it.
So am I to assume then that the builder will hire, once it's subdivision there, they will hire contractors to remove their snow on people's property and maintain the lawn, so there would be no need for a lawnmower or a snow blower to go into the garage?
Through your worship, it probably won't be the developer, it'll be the condominium corporation. And it really depends on how the condominium corporation documents are set up. I would suspect, and I don't know for a fact, but I would suspect that it's common for these types of common element condominiums that the snow responsibility is shared amongst all of the property owners. But a lot of condominiums now, they're actually going to a model where it's not like a condominium traditional where they pay for your individual grass, because then it makes your condominium fees more expensive. So you may be responsible for cutting your own lawn, but perhaps the amenity areas will be a common element, and then you all pitch in your money, and the same with the snow removal. So it'll be a combination of those things, probably.
Thank you, Councillor DeLeo. Any other comments from council or questions? So I have a few. First of all, I think it's important to note that, listen, when I drive by, I won't name any development, but every time I drive by a specific development, I just cringe. And I think to myself, how the heck did that happen? Because it is very congested. And I just don't like it. I don't like it in any way, shape, or form. Having said that, I don't like it, so I'm probably never going to buy and live there. But the province is very clear that we need to build homes faster, more homes faster. Bill 23 is very clear on that. And that we need to have a much broader selection, if you will, of the types of homes and the types of accommodation. This is just one type. We hear all the time that, I moved to Wasaga Beach so I wouldn't be in the big city. I get it. But you moved here, and many other people want to move here. And so they should be able to. And the world is changing. We have more and more people on this earth than we ever had before. And the one thing we can say about not just Ontario, but Canada or North America is we have a major housing crisis. And it is a crisis. And it is having a negative effect on so many other realms of our life. And I would say that, you know, when I hear about they may not have storage for bikes and lawnmowers and they can't park in their garage because they have a bigger vehicle. I would hope when you buy, whatever home you buy, you take that into consideration. If you're going to drive an extended full-size SUV that you want to keep in the garage, this is probably not the buy for you. You know, I hear Councillor Belanger, and I couldn't agree more, where hopefully this will reduce the cost of these homes. I'm not going to say to an affordable level, because who the heck knows what affordable is anymore? Unless we really, and we need to, not us, but the province, the federal government, and municipalities need to really take a hard look and redetermine what affordable means. Because even at our most affordable, as we define it today, it's far from affordable for most anymore. And am I a fan of this? No, I'm not. Will I push back and say, no, it can't happen? I won't. But what I would like to do is to maybe give staff some time to have a conversation with the developer, to address some of the concerns that I think are fairly minor in nature, a little more green space. And we heard today that, and we read in the report, we went from, I think it was 309 to 317. Prior to that, there was probably room for a little more green space and open space. Does it take it back to 309 or does it take it back to 312? I don't know. But I do believe that our developers, for the most part, in Wasaga Beach are very responsible developers, and they are very keen on high-quality communities. They wouldn't be where they are and as successful as they are today because of that. And so I would be more than happy to see this go back for a very short period of time for staff to have that conversation and to see if we can't see some improvement in that way. And then come back. I can tell you that if I had to move forward today, I would be fully in favor to approve this. I would take the recommendation of staff. And yeah, it's not for me, but I wouldn't move there. And we can make a million arguments as to why someone has to move there or doesn't have to move there, but at the end of the day, we all have those choices. I think that this type of housing will have a market. I think you will see seniors. I think we'll see single couples, or you know, maybe single moms, dads with one child or something. I don't think we're going to see families of 5 buying in this area, but it is another form of housing. We hear it all the time from our community that we need to look at ways to have more affordable housing. And although this is not what you would consider affordable housing, I think it will be more affordable than much of what we do have and see today. And so I think we have a substantial responsibility to make sure that we are open-minded to this. And I'm going to tell you, we are going to see 4, 5, 6-story, maybe even higher in this community in the not-too-distant future. We have to go up. We need more dollars per linear foot in order to sustain the services that we're required to provide, and the services that our residents want and need. And for those that aren't comfortable because we're becoming a big city, maybe, there's lots of space north. and I don't say that in a mean-spirited way. I just, it is what it is. And we're not going to stop this growth. And the province is very clear. As a matter of fact, we're mandated to make sure that we have this growth and that it occurs. So I'm going to look to you, Councillor DeLeo. I'm assuming you would like to put a motion on the floor to defer, or sorry, Councillor Ego, sorry, to defer this back to staff. You'd need a seconder for that. Anyone willing to second that for the councillor? Deputy Mayor Snell? Okay. So we have a motion on the floor then to refer this back to staff to sit down with the developer and see if there's anything more we can do here. What is the quick? I want to get this back, though. I don't want the developer waiting. I don't want us holding this up any longer than we have to. What's the soonest this can come back to this council, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, and through you, Your Worship. I talked to the Director of Planning. We feel that July 17th we could have a report back. I have the speaking notes from Councillor Ego, so we will use those for the discussion with the developer.
Okay. So we have a move by Councillor Ego, seconded by Deputy Mayor Snell. We have no recorded vote required for a referral, correct? Right, sorry? You may go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I hope that we just don't make this into something that it's not at the end of the day. This is designed to be a density for a purpose, and the purpose is likely, I'm guessing, costs. I don't want us to get into a situation where we're asking the developer to do things that are going to change that nature of the development. I know that they're looking to soften it up, but I also don't want to turn this into an expensive high-density situation. Thank you.
No, and I think we understand that. It's why I think we want to get this dealt with quickly. I think we've got a quality developer here who will take what's been said here and take that into consideration. But at the end of the day, so we do have a move now. Motion's on the floor, moved by Councillor Ego, seconded by Deputy Mayor Snell. All in favor? In favor of referring this back to staff? I think it is a recorded vote. No, it's not a recorded vote. It's a referral. All in favor of referring this back to staff?
Sorry, I hear some comments. The reason why it's not a recorded vote is because it's a subsidiary motion to the main motion. So there's no recorded votes.
All right, so I'm going to ask the question again. All in favor of referring this back to staff? Opposed, if any? All right, that carries 6-1, and we'll now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item 14, recommendations arising from boards and committees, and I understand we have none. Item number 15 is council requested staff reports. You've all seen the list of staff reports. Anyone else have questions or comments on this? Councillor Timms?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to make a request for a staff report, if I may. 1 second, make sure I've got all my notes clearly. Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to respectfully request that staff prepare a report outlining the feasibility of implementing a curbside giveaway day in our municipality, very similar to the program successfully running in Barrie, Ontario. Such a program would encourage residents to place unwanted, reusable items at the curb for others to take for free, supporting waste diversion, reuse, and community engagement. I'd appreciate staff examining the aspects like dates, promotion, safety considerations, operational impacts, any costs around that, and what that looks like with respect to what the county does. Thank you for your attention. I did make a few notes that items are put out in Barrie at 8 a.m. and removed by 9. The town offers advice on promoting, placing, and removing items, and it gives residents a chance to find some treasures in their own neighborhood. We already have a lot of people placing stuff at the curb and bylaw knocking at their door, and I rather like that program. I have no idea what it costs, so that's why I'd like to ask for a staff report. Thank you, Your Worship.
All right, Madam Clerk, do we need a seconder for that, or we would? Anyone willing to second that? Councillor Ego? All right, so we have that request. It's been moved by Councillor Tim, seconded by Councillor Ego. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That carries at 5-2. All right, any other questions or comments with respect to staff reports? Councillor Ego?
Thank you, and through your mayor, yes, I also would like to request a staff report today. And, whereas from time to time, resident athletes from the town of Wasaga Beach reach exceptional levels, and it may be appropriate for council to approve a special banner to be hung in the arena to commemorate exemplary achievements. And I'm asking further that council directs staff to develop an arena banner policy to inform an efficient process to commemorate resident athletic achievements related to hockey and figure skating to be hung in our arena.
Thank you, Councillor Eagle. So I just want to be clear, is this only related to hockey and figure skating, or is this
Yes.
any sport? And does it have to be
Hockey
hung in
and-
the arena,
this one's
or can it be
been asked in the arena? It's to be hung in the arena, so that's why we're relating it sorry. That's why we are relating it only to hockey and figure skating.
Okay, all right. All right, is anyone willing to second that? Sorry? Yes, go ahead, Deputy Mayor Snell.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. I'm a fan of the idea, but I would like to open it up to all sports because I think we have athletes in other areas that should be celebrated. But I think the TPAL is a great location because that could be like our kind of Hall of Fame per se.
Councillor Eagle, go ahead.
Make a comment. I have worked with Chris on this and event planning. This has been in plan for a while, and so they've had many discussions. Is it appropriate for Chris to speak to this?
Absolutely. You want to speak, Chris?
Certainly. I would only say that we don't have policy on this idea. We have had one, a very fancy, for those of you who know, I'll be a little candid. We had a great plywood painted jersey up in the old arena, and we've done a great job of commemorating Jason Arnott in the past. There are certainly more and more athletic achievements across our community, and our intent is to come up with a proper policy that can allow council from time to time to approve a special commemorative type of award/ceremony and ideally hang a special banner in the appropriate facility.
Thank you, Chris. Go ahead, Councillor Eagle.
Philip, thank you. Yes, and I do believe in hockey arenas. It's only hockey, ice skating, or figure skating that would hold those banners. I don't think you'd ever see any other sport in an arena.
I'm actually, before I go to council, I'm going to look to our deputy CAO, who was mayor of Penetang at one point, and Penetang has quite the Sports Hall of Fame. Can you just touch on that a bit, Jerry?
Yes, so in the Penetang Senior, there's a great Sports Hall of Fame. It's community-driven, volunteer-driven, led. They have a selection process. There's an annual event that they host at the arena every year to celebrate, 3 or 4 or 5 memorable teams or individuals. So there's ideas that we can research from other municipalities. So I think a staff report would be good, and I think based on council's discussion here, we could make it wholesome as to how that looks. I do know the Penetang Sports Hall of Fame, for instance, does have a tennis player in there and does have a golfer, a high school teacher that coached volleyball. So it is a little broader than just ice hockey and figure skating. So, happy to participate in the report. Based on council's discussion here, I think the scope of the report's fairly obvious for us to pursue.
Yeah, I guess, what I'm hearing is that although hockey and figure skating is huge here in Wasaga Beach, that we do have athletes from many other areas, and why wouldn't we be recognizing them? So, not that I want to amend your motion, Councillor, but I'm wondering if we shouldn't be looking to have staff bring back a report on something similar to a Sports Hall of Fame that we could host. We could hang banners then in the arena or in the Recplex or wherever, but I'm going to look to our clerk for some guidance there before we go back to council.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Smith. You'll remember that council did pass a great citizen award policy. So we have that in place to ensure that we are recognizing our amazing athletes that are born and practice and play here. We did a municipal scan when we were looking at this request, and I do feel that it's appropriate that we look at a banner policy for municipal facilities, and that way it incorporates and looks at all types of sports, and that way we'll bring that back to council for consideration. So I feel that the motion is appropriate, and we will ensure that we look at it with a broad lens. The municipal scan did show that it's very common to have this policy.
Okay, great. All right, Councillor DeLeo?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Chris, I'm just curious, the banners we're talking about, would each athlete have their own banner, or would you have one with all their names, and then each time we add a name, you got to reprint it? Just curious.
So I think there are two ideas afloat right now. There is an Athlete of the Year award. It is typically done annually, that we do a male and a female, and those people are commemorated on a single plaque. Some of you may have seen them by the washrooms in the lobby of the Recplex. So we have one large plaque. It probably has 36 small name plates where you can put 36 males on the one and 36 females on the other. That is how we intend to continue commemorating Athlete of the Year. The discussion that's afloat today with the motion from Councillor Ego is for staff to make recommendations on how we might commemorate a special athlete, someone who has done something even greater than the typical athletes that are often nominated for Athlete of the Year. And this would be something that we would put up in the arena in the event of a hockey or figure skater, or further to the mayor's comments, that there could be other sports that could be commemorated, and this would be the one-off type of approval that we would come back to council each time a special banner would be hung in one of the sports facilities, primarily considering the arena first and foremost.
Councillor Belanger?
Yes, through the mayor. I'd be more comfortable referring it back to staff to come back with more ideas. Like, most Hall of Fames would have some memorabilia, and certainly if an athlete is being recognized, they'd probably be very willing to give us something that is more interesting than a banner. And that I think we have certain spaces that could be made available where that could be a lot more interesting for the public to look at, would look more professional than having, just multiple banners hanging up. But again, I would just like to open it up for staff to investigate further than just a banner policy.
All right, thank you. Jerry?
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Belanger's comment sparked me, so I was at the arena in Aurora and watching hockey there, but in Aurora they don't have a Sports Hall of Fame, but what they did do is they had display cases, to your point, with a local athlete. One of the athletes there was from the Jamaican bobsled team. So I had his helmet, had a suit in there, and a little narrative about that. So some very creative solutions across the province that staff could bring forward for council's consideration for sure.
All right, Councillor Ego?
Thank you, and through your worship. Yes, I feel we're speaking about two different things, really. We're speaking now about a sports hall of fame versus versus acknowledging an outstanding athlete that has done exceptional feats throughout the world. And that would always be voted on its own, like it would come to council. So it really is, in all honesty, this came to me a couple of years ago, really when I first got into council. So staff have been trying to figure this out to do it properly, and that's where we're at now. And we would like to move forward on this part, and perhaps we could separate it. This is the one about the hockey, the arena, and then a sports hall of fame or acknowledging, in the hallways, that's different again. But in an arena, you do hang that banner of someone that has contributed famously, taken it beyond our borders. So I still am asking that we could move this one forward and then put under advisement for whatever for a hockey hall or a sports hall of fame to acknowledge. So.
Yeah, I think what we're hearing here, and I'm sure staff gets the they understand what we're looking at both. I mean, a Hall of Fame is one thing, but someone who actually wins a Stanley Cup, actually scores the winning goal maybe in a Stanley Cup game, or is an Olympic medalist, gold, silver, or bronze, or a world champion, or wins the PGA, I think we understand that, and that's a different, but I think we can pull this all into one and get that back to council, so we're dealing with both. Breathe, Councillor. We're all right. Yeah. Okay. Any questions or comments from staff on direction here? All right. No questions or comments from staff. We have it moved by Councillor Ego, seconded by Deputy Mayor Snell. All in favor? Carries unanimously. All right. Thank you for that, Councillor Ego. Any other comments or concerns, questions on requested staff reports? Seeing none, moving along to notices of motion. We have none today. And now 17 is closed session, and pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, the next portion of the June 25th, 2025 council meeting will move into closed session to consider the following matters. Do you have those? They're not on my sheet here. Madam Clerk, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. 17.3.1, committee appointments. 17.3.2, Wasaga Beach Destination Waterfront Master Plan. The transfer payment agreement, and 17.3.3, proposed disposition, acquisition of lands.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. You've heard the items on the list. Can I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Moved by Councillor Tim, seconded by Councillor Belanger. All in favor? That carries unanimously. We will now move into closed session.
And we're live, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Clerk, and welcome back, everybody. We just coming back out of closed session, and I'll look to our clerk for a rise and report. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Your Worship. Council entered closed session on June 25th at 12:20 p.m. to discuss the following items. 17.3.1, committee appointment in accordance with Section 239(2)B of the Act. As a result of that discussion, the following motion is before Council. That Steve Copeland be appointed to the Climate Action Advisory Committee. If we could get a mover and seconder, Your Worship.
Moved by Councillor Belanger, seconded by Deputy Mayor Snell. All in favor? Carries unanimously.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council also discussed item 17.3.2, the Wasaga Beach Destination Waterfront Master Plan Transfer Payment Agreement in accordance with Section 239(2)H of the Act. As a result of that discussion, the following motion is before Council. That the Mayor be authorized to execute the transfer payment agreement between the Province of Ontario and the Town of Wasaga Beach to fund the Destination Waterfront Master Plan.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Could I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Moved by Councillor Timms and seconded by Councillor White. All in favor? That carries unanimously.
Thank you, Your Worship. And lastly, Council discussed item 17.3.3, proposed disposition and acquisition of lands in accordance with Section 239(2)C of the Municipal Act. As a result of that discussion, staff direction was provided. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. And now moving on to item 19, which is bylaws. The following bylaw items have been, the following bylaw items have been pulled from the consent list above to be voted on separately, and that is 19.2. Other than that, are there any other comments from council or staff on the bylaws? Seeing none, then, we do have a recommended motion that the following bylaws be received and be deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. 19.1, which is 2025-26, a bylaw to amend Town of Wasaga Beach Comprehensive Zoning. Sorry, Madam Clerk?
I do apologize. That item was referred, so we will remove bylaw 19.1 from the consent. My apologies.
All right. So then I'll go on then to 19.3, which is 25-28, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Wasaga Beach at its regular council meeting held Wednesday, June 25th, 2025. Mover and a seconder for this, please. Councillor Belanger, Councillor White. All in favor? Carries unanimously. And then we have the one item left that was pulled, 2025-27, a bylaw to authorize tax arrears extension agreement, and this was pulled by Councillor DeLeo. Councillor?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Jocelyn, I just have a quick, I'm a little confused. Is this bylaw, are we repealing it, or are we adding to the existing? Like, is the existing still the same wording, or are you just adding the fact that the clerk and yourself will be the designated people to make these decisions?
Through Your Worship, this bylaw, it's just a standard bylaw that we have to bring forward when we're doing this type of an agreement. So it's not to clarify who signs, it just does indicate who can sign the bylaw. But it's just a standard bylaw to bring forward and enter into one of these types of agreements.
So I'm going to thank you, Jocelyn. I'll look to the clerk for clarification. We're not repealing anything here. We're simply just adding a bylaw that allows for these agreements to happen. But I'll look to our clerk to clarify that further for you, Councillor. Madam Clerk?
Thank you. This is to authorize the agreement.
So it's to authorize the agreement of an extension of tax arrears.
But is it a new bylaw we're putting forward?
It is a new bylaw. 2025-27, a new bylaw, and the bylaw is to authorize a tax arrears extension agreement so as that staff can authorize if someone asked for an extension. So if they're, for example, if you're 3 years behind and...
No, I get what it means.
Okay.
No, the only question I just, like from my understanding, I thought any new bylaws have to come up as a motion and we have to vote for it. Council has to vote on it. Am I correct on that?
It's here now, and that's what we're voting on.
It didn't come up as a motion.
No, it only comes up with something else.
Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Your Worship. So on all our agendas, the bylaws are listed at the end, and we pass them via consent. And then if a council member would like to discuss a bylaw, then we pull it out for separate consideration. Otherwise, the motion is to approve all the bylaws.
I am in favor.
Okay. You're good? Okay. All right, so I'm going to read it one more time, then, that the bylaw to authorize the tax arrears... Sorry, Jocelyn?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to clarify, anytime we bring an extension agreement forward, there would be a bylaw. So it's not that it's a new bylaw, it's just a new bylaw for this particular agreement. It's just authorizing an agreement, that's all.
So to be clear then for council, what you're saying is if someone comes in and needs an extension, you would create that bylaw and bring it to council for approval?
That's correct. Thank you.
Would apply every time someone needs an extension, this bylaw will come out? Like you would bring it forward?
That's correct.
And it's only council who can authorize it, right? All right, any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll read it one more time then. It is recommended that the bylaw to authorize the tax arrears extension agreement be received and to be deemed when read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered 2025-27. Can I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Moved by Deputy Mayor Snell, seconded by Councillor DeLeo. All in favor? That carries unanimously, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.